Thank you everybody for joining today's webinar covering our version 8.0 software release. These webinars are something that we do regularly for our active maintenance customers. Our goal is to better familiarize you with our software and make sure that it perfectly fits your needs. If this is your first time joining us for a Hiperwall tutorial webinar, welcome. Don't worry, we try to keep these short and focused, so today's webinar should only run about 20 minutes. Today I'm joined by my colleagues Steve Whitwer and Steve Wu. Steve Whitwer will walk you through Hiperwall's 8.0 upgrades and the exciting new features, and will be providing a demo at the end of the presentation. As Steve Wu said a few minutes ago, these meetings will be recorded, or this meeting actually will be recorded and made available after for others to view. We do ask that you mute your mics until after the demo. If you have any questions during the presentation, please ask them in the comment section or use the raise hand button at the top of the window. We will close with a Q&A session where you can openly ask any Hyperwall related questions. So that's that. Let's get started. Steve, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Welcome, everybody, again. I just want to go over this fairly quickly. So I may not go into as much detail as you would like. So as they already mentioned, feel free to ask questions, hopefully at the end. But if you need something right away, just, I guess there must be a raise your hand function or put it in the chat. So first, what is new for version 8? And I'll go over each of these. But we have HiperCast Pull. If you're familiar with HiperCast, it's just kind of a change in the topology and how that works. HiperSource Streamer Plus, which is a rebuild of the Streamer application, if you're familiar with that. High frame rate captures, basically rebuild from the ground up. HiperView Plus, which is based off of quantum technology, and HiperZones, which is probably what we're going to spend the most amount of time on because it's one of the most requested features for Hyperwall. And we do feel like we've done a really good job of putting together something that's very usable. With that being said, let's get right into it. HiperCast Pull. If you're familiar with HiperCast, HiperCast was originally designed to allow sharing of content really from anywhere in the world across multiple Hyperwall systems. HiperCast Pull is going to simplify the configuration or the topology that really it simplifies the network connectivity. And just so everybody knows, I'm not going to read these slides. You guys can read these at your own pace. I'm just going to basically talk to the points. What HiperCast Pull does previously with just straight HiperCast, each Hyperwall system that was sharing content had to have network connectivity, network configurations, ports allowed, firewall exceptions to allow all of those Hyperwall systems to share content to the HiperCast server, which could then share it out to all the other walls. We've dramatically simplified that now, where the only network configuration now is required is on the actual HiperCast server itself. And so instead of the HiperCast server reaching out to all of the controllers and all of the Hyperwall systems, now the HiperCast system or the hypercontrollers will actually reach out to the server and make that connection. Ultimately, what that does, as I mentioned, is allows the network configuration to be significantly more simple. Only one port forward is required as opposed to 2 per system, as what it was before. So if you had 3 of them, there was a significant amount of networks requirement. I will read what are the benefits. It streamlines the process of accessing and sharing content to other Hyperwall video walls. That's really it in a nutshell. It just makes your job easier to share content. Again, we can talk about questions on that as we go. I'll leave this up for just another second before I move on to the next slide. All right, here is just a picture of the UI. Not a lot has changed in the main window, which is what you're going to see on the left here. If I had any connected sources when I pulled this screenshot, they would be listed up here. All of your destination controllers would be listed here. What I really want to focus on is the next 2 images. The one on the right, where you can set your port. This is the port that would need to be forwarded to the HiperCast server. That's really it. That's all you need to configure for the software itself, short of what you did before. And then actually on the controller now, as most of you will recognize, this is the left-hand side of the controller application, or in the shorthand, we always just call it the GUI. It is called the control panel. There is now a new button down here called Connect to HiperCast. What that will do is it will pop up a little window that allows you to enter some information and allows you to directly connect to the HiperCast system, which will then allow you to choose what sources you want that are being shared. You do not have to select all of the sources, so it allows you to streamline some of your source content as well to make things simpler. You're not seeing things that you don't need to see. That again is HiperCast Pull. All right, HiperSource Streamer Plus. If you're familiar with the old streamer, this is basically a rewrite using some more modern techniques and modern technologies that really enhances and streamlines the internal processes of the application. Also, the UI has changed significantly, which you'll see in the next slide. It is designed strictly to do a couple different things. One is it will pull capture card inputs, just like the old streamer. At release time, it is Magewell capture cards only. That will increase over time. Data path will be the next. And then I'm also working on some others. It can also do screen scrapes at a high frame rate. So if you're sharing YouTube TV or a YouTube video or even a PowerPoint presentation where you need very smooth animations, the streamer is a great way to go. It does, again, allow 4K 60, up to 4K 60 content, or UHD, where the previous one, we could, the old streamer, we could technically get 4K 60, but we had to build a really powerful system. Now it's with the new technology, we're much easier to get that 4K 60. As a matter of fact, we can probably get multiple 4K 60s, or certainly I've done many times 4K 60 and a 4K 30 frame on the same PC. I can also, because it is much more streamlined, I can get 8 1080 captures. So if you have multiple Magewell capture cards or displays, you can. It just really just makes everything a lot more streamlined and a lot more efficient when it comes to processing. Also, as we'll see on the next one, the UI of the new streamer is significantly different. It is a little bit more like, if you're familiar with the IP streams interface, it's a little bit more familiar with that, where you can connect, disconnect sources. I highlight it and then hit the connect button that's listed down here. The nice thing about it is, in the previous streamer, when you launched the streamer, it wouldn't remember what you had connected and what you didn't have connected. On the new streamer, it will remember. And it'll also remember the frames per second that you have selected. It gives you some nice information. The UI has really been streamlined to make things a little bit more simple to use and make more sense. There's also, I'm not going to really talk about this too much, but down on the left-hand window here, you'll see there's a default capture mode. There's actually multiple different types of captures. They all have their pros and cons, but depending on what you need, you can adjust the system to make it useful for you and make it work for what you need it to do. And that's the Streamer Plus. Again, the big highlight here on the Streamer Plus is it's way more efficient, which ultimately allows you to get more captures from a single machine, ultimately reducing the total cost of ownership. HiperView Plus. Everybody knows what HiperView is. It's used a Hiperwall system. It is the software that drives the displays. It is responsible for rendering the content. It renders the video on the wall. HiperView has been something that we've been using obviously since the beginning. It's gone through a name change, but it's the same technology. HiperView Plus is based on, if you're familiar with the DirectView LED systems that we've come out with, we have an add-on called Quantum, which was a rewrite of the HiperView from the ground up that was designed specifically for DD LED, specifically with zero bezel and keeping synchronization across multiple DirectView LED controllers very, very synchronized, so you didn't get any tearing. HiperView Plus is based off of Quantum technology. It is a free upgrade. It is a no cost. The only thing that is required is that your HiperView PCs have NVIDIA graphics cards. Eventually, that will be expanded to include Intel as well, but for now, it is a NVIDIA GPU only. It is significantly more efficient. Again, much like the Streamer Plus, it is built using modern technologies and libraries. and works extremely well. If you're familiar with Quantum, Quantum does require use of a hardware genlock, the NVIDIA Sync 2 card. HiperView Plus does not require that, but it works extremely well. So if you've got HiperView PCs with HiperView Plus, you can enable that on a per PC basis within the UI. We can talk about that a little bit more later if you need to. HiperZones. Okay, this is where we're going to spend the bulk of our time. And again, this is a quick webinar, so I'm not going to hit everything. But because this is new completely, it's not a rewrite of an existing technology. I do want to make sure that it's understood. What is it? Well, HiperZones is an add-on technology designed to maintain content integrity on a video wall. What do we mean by content integrity? If I have something on the wall that's important in an emergency operations center, and we're in the middle of an emergency, I don't want somebody else messing with that content. I don't want them to take that down. I don't want them to cover it up because they're doing something else, working on maybe something that they're working on the same video wall. What Zones allows you to do is create basically zones within the Hyperwall that only specific users can control. So actually, we've got a great definition here. HiperZones allows video wall administrators to define multiple access controlled zones on a single video wall, turning one video wall into a group of several smaller video wall regions. This feature is ideal for maintaining order within a control room, especially during mission critical operations, as it enables only designated operators to access, share content to, and manipulate their assigned zone of the video wall. It goes on to talk about the fact that you can also use HiperOperator to remotely control your zone, whether you're on site or around the world, doesn't matter. That is what Zones does in a nutshell. It allows you to have operators assigned a specific part of the video wall that only they can mess with. Now, you can have multiple operators assigned to the same zone, and that's fine. But still, if you don't have permissions to access that zone, then you won't be able to, or if you launch content into a different zone, that content won't cross over into anybody else's zone. Hopefully that makes sense. I will actually, next I'm going to show you a little bit of a demo. So this is kind of a quick drawing. On the left here, you see a video wall. It's a 2x2 with some what we call wall zones enabled. And then on the right-hand side, this 2x2 video wall has been split out into 4 different zones. And those zones, again, can be assigned to specific users. Hopefully that makes sense. All right. Here's just a picture of the UI. You're going to see that in a second when I give you your demo, which is next. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a second and then bring up my demo, and I'll start sharing again. So give me 1 second while I switch over to my remote session. All right. And let me share that.
And that's going to help you optimize by monitoring the data, Eric.
And somebody is not muted, so and you're talking, it sounds like you're talking on the phone, which is totally fine. But if you can mute yourself, that would be great. As much as we enjoy hearing your phone conversation. All right. Now you can see I just shared the controller. It is in our experience center in our office. And you can see in the upper left-hand corner here of the control screen, I've just got a VLC window of the actual room, so you can see the video wall live as I do this. You can see I have multiple video walls here. I can show you in a bit some of the other video walls, but for now, I'm going to take the 3x, or actually I'm going to put some content up on outside of the 3x2 wall here, the 3x255, what we call the blue wall internally. And I am just going to search for a high resolution image here just to keep it simple. And I'm throwing it up here, and you can see it's on here, but let's just say I have it over on a different wall, and let's just pretend I don't have zones enabled. Okay. If I make that bigger because I want to zoom in, I'm zooming into that image, but you can see it is now, even though I've got it on this other wall over here, you can see that it is creeping onto my video wall, okay, onto the blue wall, which I don't want. So with that in mind, I can simply go in here and I'm just going to go to the Wall Zones tab. And again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on how I do this. I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to create a new zone, and we're going to call it the blue left. And then which existing wall are we going to create it on? There is a zone created for each wall. I apologize. Let's see. Let's try this again. Blue left. And we're going to create that zone. Okay. So now because I chose the 3x2, it's the whole thing, but I don't want it to be the whole thing. I only want it to be half. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to select my upper left and my lower right, and I'm going to commit changes. And now I can manage access if I want to. I'm not going to do that, but I can, which basically allows me to assign it. And then I'm going to create another zone, and we're going to call it blue right, if I can type. And again, we're going to assign that to the 3x2, create the zone, and I'm going to choose this. Now, what you're going to notice for those of you that are paying attention is these zones, this is a 3x2 wall. I am not creating these zones based on, changes, sorry, forgot that. I'm not creating these zones based on monitor boundaries. These zones can be created, you can have multiple zones in a single display. So keep that in mind as well. Now all I'm going to do is I'm just going to choose that zone. I'm going to do blue left. There we go. It highlights here. And if I launch this, I can actually send it straight to that zone. So I'm going to send it here. Now you'll see if I try to move this over, it doesn't show up on those other displays. If I try to make it bigger, it doesn't show up. So I can zoom in to my heart's content. And over the webinar, I'm sure you can't see how clear this image is, but and it doesn't mess with anybody else's zone. You can see even on the purple wall over here, or the green wall, which the green wall I'm definitely covering with this piece of content. It is not showing up. I can, if I choose to, assuming I have permissions and I have access to the wall, I can send this content to the right wall. And then what it's going to do is you can see in this video that it's showing up on the right wall, but not on the left. But I can't see it because I'm still controlling the blue left wall or zone. Sorry, I keep calling it a wall. I apologize. Yeah. I'm still controlling the blue left zone. If I change that to where I'm controlling the blue right zone, well, then I can see it, and I can move it around. So hopefully that's a great and a good quick show. The big thing on this is that content integrity. Especially if you've got multiple walls, although you don't have to, it could be a larger wall that you want to split into multiple independent zones, but it allows you to assign that to a specific user that's logged into the system and control who has the ability to move, assign content, delete content. Any of that information can be controlled through that access. So that is zones. So let me again stop sharing here real quick, and I'll bring up the PowerPoint presentation again. Second. All right, hopefully you guys can see that. And get back down to where I was at. Basically, we're pretty much done. I just wanted to point out that version 8 is out today. This isn't something that you have to wait months for. HiperCast Pull, HiperSource Streamer, HiperView, and HiperZones are all baked into version 8. They're all available today. If you have a current maintenance contract, that is something that you can upgrade to. If you have a premium license, you can, HiperZones is included. If you don't have a premium license, it is an add-on. You can purchase that. Just let your reseller or let us know, and we can help out with that. Michael, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
No, I think you covered it, Steve. Thank you for that. I do want to reiterate the fact that if you have an active maintenance contract with Hiperwall, most of these features here are available to you today. If you have a maintenance contract with Hyperwall Premium, you will get HiperZones just built in. It is part of the premium suite of software. That said, I think there was a couple questions here in the chat, and we'll open this up now to anybody else. So, by all means, please feel free to unmute and ask your questions at this point. But we did have one question about the ability to control sources and zones. Can you actually set source permissions for specific zones or for specific users?
So what you can do, so ultimately the answer to that question is not really. What you can do is you can allow users to only launch certain types of sources. So you can say this user can launch senders, this user can launch streamers, user 3 can launch everything. But currently we don't have the ability to launch or to keep users from doing specific streamers or specific senders. That feature is on the roadmap. I don't have an ETA on that, but it is something that will be coming eventually, but not currently. We do have the ability to, on a per user basis, assign specific environments. And as you know, environments are like presets. So you can limit what a user can launch from an environment perspective, but not so much for the actual individual sources built into that environment. I hope that makes sense.
Cool. Another question here. Any improvements in the API?
So there's a variety of different things that have happened with the API over the last few versions. Mostly it's in things such as when we introduced the milestone plugin, and we updated the API to allow IP cameras to be connected or disconnected. Same thing with HyperBrowser, our web browser. You can create new internet tabs. You can delete new internet tabs. When the audio functionality was introduced in Hiperwall version 7.1, I think, the API allows you to control these the volumes of each sources or each display. So those things have definitely changed. I don't know off the top of my head, and I apologize, I probably should know this. I don't think there's anything in the API for zones, but there may be. I do know there's probably been some changes so that the API will allow you to target specific zones, but I don't know that there's any way to create a zone or assign a user to a zone from the API. So if there's anything for zones, it's probably something fairly small. I can get more information on that. If you just email support@hyperwall.com, I'm happy to get anything more on there for you.
And then there was another question that says, still no audio from senders. Any future plans?
So sender is best effort frame rate. It's completely CPU based. Usually it's a low frame rate. So keeping audio and video on a sender synced is virtually impossible. And so at this point, no, there is no plans for that. With that being said, if you want audio, you can always take audio from the source itself, from the PC or from the browser machine itself into whatever audio system you're using. But the same rules kind of apply. It's the audio video sync on a sender isn't really going to be there. With Streamer Plus, there is audio built into the capture card. So if the HDMI source on the capture card includes audio, you do have the ability to turn audio on and off for that.
Excellent. All right. Any other questions about any of these new exciting technologies? Feel free to ask. You want to go back through a demo? We're happy to do that as well.
Yeah, if anybody wants more details, just let me know.
Great. Well, it looks like there's no other questions on this. As I said earlier in the introduction, this webinar was recorded, so we will go ahead and share this with everybody. And you feel free to disperse among your teams to help clarify these new features. If you have any questions or are interested in getting the 8.0 upgrade today, please reach out. Feel free to also reach out to us. You have Steve Wu's email address and Steve Whitwer's email address. If you have any technical questions going forward on this, excited to help you out. There are a few resources available for HiperZones and version 8.0 on our website. There was a HiperZones quick video on YouTube as well, so please feel free to take a look at that if you need some further clarification on these technologies. But with that, that concludes our webinar today. We will send you over the link to the file, to the video file of this recording shortly. So everybody, please have a great day, and please tune in for our next webinar, which we should have one hopefully next month, and keep, I guess, educating everybody on the great things that you can do with our software. So have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.